Hello YouTube and welcome to an all new Elder Scrolls lore video. Today on the different cheeses of Tamriel. Now, I know what it sounds like, but I recently got a very passionate comment by someone named Memento Mori saying that he or she would even watch a video if I did one on the cheeses of Tamriel. So yeah, with that bit of assurance that at least one person would watch this video, I got to work, and here we are now. Also, just a quick note. I expected this video to be a joke video of only 3 minutes or so I started researching way too late, only to then find out that there was quite some lore on it, so it turned into a serious video, so yeah. Enjoy the video that's a day late, because I started way too late. Yeah, let's talk about cheese. So, in general, in all of Tamriel's provinces they have different types of cheese that we literally don't have lore on and just have generic names. For example, everywhere they have blue cheeses, cheddar cheeses, marble cheeses, parmesan cheeses, goat cheeses and other cow cheeses. But I wanted to talk about some specific Elder Scrolls exclusive cheeses, and I'm starting with a cheese produced in Skyrim, Redguard Cheese. Now, Redguard cheese is a type of blue cheese, presumably made from regular cow milk eaten by Nords, usually with meat. It has a rich, earthy flavor and creamy texture and is exported to other provinces of Tamriel, especially to High Rock because it goes well with bread and sauces. It is said to be the best cheese in Skyrim, essentially, and some holds produce their own variants of it. For example, it's said that some variants are aged with very specific secret types of fungus in the process. A common denominator for all types of Redguard cheese is that they're all aged underground in basements away from the light, and for more exclusive variants some are even aged inside vaults. Some Jarls even have their own specifically bred herd of cows that produce the highest quality of milk for the Jarl servants to make some special Redguard cheese with it, only to be served in the Jarl's palace. In Solitude this is, or rather was, taken so seriously that as they make the cheese, a tiny crumb of the previous batch of cheese made is thrown into the mixture at the base of the cheese in order to create an unbroken chain of cheese going back to forgotten generations of previous Solitude Jarls. Another type of specific Redguard cheese that we know of is Barrow cheese, which is made in southern Skyrim, specifically around Falkreath. It's apparently very similar to regular Redguard cheese, except for the fact that it's not aged in a cellar or in a vault, but rather it's aged inside an ancient Nordic barrow atop of ancient coffins. This apparently gives it an earthy sweetness. But this does not sound tasty to me, knowing that it's basically been aged in a tomb atop of dead people, but you know, each to their own. Another type of cheese from Skyrim that basically probably everybody knows who has played Skyrim is mammoth cheese, which is apparently only made by giants because of the size of the mammoths, which, you know, regular people are unable to milk. It apparently has a robust flavor, as a Breton chef call it, but it's very nutritious. Although a lot of people around Tamriel seem to think that it's absolutely disgusting, some do like to have it in their stews. And as such, it is exported to other places around Tamriel by Nords who are brave enough to try and steal it from the mammoth, and the giants who herd them. It has apparently a very paste-like texture, and it's aged in the stomach of a slaughtered mammoth, so apparently these things that we see in Skyrim are mammoth stomachs. You know, the more you know. Now, about Skyrim, we have a lot of lore on their cheeses, as we have a whole book series in the Elder Scrolls Online, The Cheeses of Skyrim, which, well, we don't have for the other provinces, so there's going to be a lot of Skyrim here. Like, for example, we have Greenwich cheese, which is apparently almost exclusively at festivities around Morthal in the Second Era. Why only there? We don't know. But it's usually served at the end of feasts as some grand dessert, where younger members of the community tend to melt the cheese with a torch before eating it. Careful not to blacken it, as after it's melted they dip bread and apples and other fruits into it and then eat it. In some feasts that are given by the rich, it is even customary to throw an expensive amber plum into the molten cheese and then fight over who gets to eat it first, as the person who eats it first will be named king of the feast. Now, we also have Whiterun's Old Umber cheese, which isn't really cheese, but rather a mixture of cheese and cream, which is boiled until it's solid. So, yeah, the author of the book, Skyrim's Cheeses, doesn't really count it as cheese, but we're mentioning it. But let's take a quick break from Skyrim. I mean, don't worry, we will be back as that's where most of the lore is, but let's go to Hammerfell now, because the Redguards do have one particular type of cheese which is really interesting. Shrieking cheese. Now, there seems to be nothing really special about this type of cheese in the taste department, but what we do know is that it has one weird quirk. After a secret process in which the cheese is made, it can be melted down, and when it's melted, the cheese itself screams as if in pain. Now, leave it to the Redguards to find a use out of this, as the screams of the cheese are actually used as some sort of alarm. When you throw this cheese in the cooking pot with a dish, they use the scream to know when the dish is ready. How convenient. Now, we don't know for absolute certain what kind of milk is used to make this cheese, but we do know that the Redguards like their goat milk, so it's likely that the Shrieking Cheese is a variation of goat cheese. And that's basically all we know about Hammerfell, but what we know about another province, Cyrodiil, is, well, very little, because all we know of Cyrodiil is that they exclusively produce Olroy cheese and Colovian cheese, both of which we know nothing about, other than that they are produced in Cyrodiil. And similarly, we know that the orcs produce Etcheteri cheese, which is made from Etcheteri milk, which we know a little bit more of because we know what kind of milk it's made from. It's made from the milk of the creature called the Etcheteri. Now, the only thing we know about this cheese, other than that, is that it functions like an aphrodisiac. Cool. You see what kind of lore we're working with outside of Skyrim? So, yeah, let's get back to Skyrim. In the Rift, they apparently make special Rift Wash cheese, which is apparently a very dry purple cheese which has a glassy violet/black exterior made from goat milk. It apparently has a very rich taste and has been bathed in blackberry mead, which gives it a really dark color, and is then shrouded in wax, which is mixed with blackberry must. We also know a bit of Reachman cheese, specifically a goat's cheese which is named Doe's Ire, which sounds pretty horrid, to be honest, because it's a salty cheese that's apparently curdled in the stomach of a live baby goat, after which the baby goat is killed to then get it out. I don't like that, so let's continue with the Bretons. Now, we know that the Bretons like their cheese, but we don't know any specifics other than that they produce a lot of goat cheeses, which are known to be quite moist. That's all we know. Really scraping the barrel here of the other races, because we do have another Nord cheese that we know of. Specifically, we have Bienost cheese, which seems to be a regular cheese which is aged inside the intestines of a slaughtered pig. That's basically all we know. It's a very dry cheese and it's often eaten in spring after it's dried the entire winter, and is specifically popular in the Pale. Anyway, the final type of Nord cheese that we will talk about is called Ghost Flesh. This is a type of cheese made in northern Skyrim where the climate is too cold for goats and cows. They basically import some farmer's cheese from other parts of the province and then smoke it over a pile of burning seaweed, which gives the sea's aroma to the cheese. That way they do technically produce their own cheese in the north, even though the original base cheese was imported. So, next up we got Khajiit molten cheese, which they often make fondue with to dip other food into. Now, we know that the reason that they melt the cheese in the first place seems to be so they can throw moon sugar into the midst and often some sort of alcohol to go alongside it. But that's about all we know, as we don't really know what type of cheese they use. But you know, it's cheese lore, so you'll take it. And another piece of elsewhere cheese lore is that the Khajiit also make potatoes filled with cheese. Again, I know I'm scraping the barrel here, but we do need some variation in this video after all the Nordic talk. Now, the next piece of variation I have for you is Morrowind Scuttle, which is often called beetle cheese. It's not really cheese, but it's the Dunmer's attempt at replicating cheese, using beetle flesh and several peppery spices, like apparently pepper. It's made from flesh and not milk, and as such is considered a cheese replica, as it does not contain any dairy, but according to a Breton chef, it can apparently be used as a cheese substitute in several dishes and is quite tasty despite looking absolutely disgusting. Now, the final type of cheese that I know of is Shivering Cheese. It's magical cheese, which glows. It's a furniture in the Elder Scrolls Online, which I'm too poor to afford in-game, so enjoy this UASP image. And that's basically all we know of cheeses of Tamriel. A bit disappointing as we have literally nothing for the Altmer, the Argonians and the Bosmer, but you know, that's just how life is. Sometimes there is no lore. But I do have a post by Tamriel, the person who runs Taste of Tamriel, who also helped me with the Alcohols of Tamriel video. That video is in the description, by the way, if you want to check it out. In this post, she made some fun headcanon cheeses, like for example Indrik cheese for the Altmer, which would make sense in lore. So, you know, check that out. It's not canon, but it's definitely lore friendly, so link is in the description. That being said, all that rests me now is to, you know, thank you, telling you, hopefully you learned something. And if you like this video, consider returning for the next Elder Scrolls lore video. And of course, vocally thank my top Patreon supporters, Mr. Bernardo Binda, Gabriel Binda, Polarized Poutine, Athena Yodis, King Chris, Bulge, Cramp the Scrolls, Doji, Fenrir, Sword of Bushido, Zarmekal, and Mr. Christmas. It's thanks to all these people and all the others on screen that this channel stays alive, and for that I'm very grateful. That said, I hope to see you all in the next Elder Scrolls lore video, probably not on cheese. My